See, we come from a world where we've delivered Bigg Boss in multiple languages, now 7, 8 different languages. We deliver 800 days of Bigg Boss in a calendar year. Yeah. It's unheard of globally. We come from the world where Bigg Boss cumulatively delivers almost about like 500 million viewers. People generally equate reality shows to being slightly negative, slightly off-centered, and maybe conflict or toxic. Yeah. People have gone down in that direction. We said let's not do any of that. Like when I made the Great Indian Laughter Challenge, it was really from can I really create stand-up comedy culture in the country, and this stand-up comedy culture was created in early 2000s. When there was no stand-up comedy culture back in those days. Yeah. When I built a show called Pop Stars, I had no clue this was called reality television. The days of Viva and Asma, I'm sure you may have heard some of their songs back in those days. I had no clue this was called reality television.
Deepak, it is wonderful to talk to you, especially here at your lovely office.
Thank you, Suchin. Good to have you here, and thank you.
There's a lot I want to pick your brain about, but first you are the founder and group CEO of Banijay Asia and Endemol China India. Is that correct?
That's right.
I was practicing that, so I'm glad I got it right. And you've obviously had a very illustrious career in media and entertainment. You're considered one of the pioneers of bringing reality TV to India. I don't want to miss any of these. So you are sort of considered the mind behind importing and Indianizing hits like Bigg Boss, Khatron Ke Khiladi, MasterChef and Great Indian Laughter Challenge, which is a hell of a resume. Speaking of which, November this year is 20 years of Bigg Boss, if I'm not wrong. So happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Hell of a journey, I imagine that's been.
Yeah, it's been quite a hell of a journey. Back in the days when we were trying to bring like the biggest reality show globally to India, it was. I mean, 20 years later, I didn't think we would be sitting here and talking about it. It's been navigating the Indian media and entertainment ecosystem and trying to land it. And I just felt that back in those days, this show was quite a gamble. Yeah. It doesn't seem to be a gamble anymore, but in hindsight, it was quite a journey.
Is it true that you fought, when you were getting the format here, you fought for it to be changed from Big Brother to Bigg Boss, which I get the boss part, but then you also fought for the 2 Gs. Yeah. What was the logic of that?
Well, I first made the, when we bought the rights and, bringing it to the country, India in 2005, 2006 seemed like a distant dream for a creator sitting in Amsterdam. And I said, okay, let's give the show to somebody in India, and they would want to make Big Brother. After we kind of wrapped the deal up and, got down to really sitting down to make it, and then we started, it has to be culturally relevant, it has to be feeling right for India. Otherwise, you just can't take a format or an idea, an IP, and just copy paste it. It doesn't work anywhere. And then I remember making a bunch of calls, and first big challenge was, can I change the title? And why would you want to change the title? You paid a lot of money to buy the rights, and it's
a known franchise.
It's uniformly accepted globally back in those days already, maybe 30, 35 markets. And I fought and made it Bigg Boss because I wanted it to sound very Indian, because boss is like a big Indian colloquial term. Big Boss is like a big term we've always used in setups, office, home, and between friends and family and whatnot. So I really wanted to make this as a term that could really galvanize the franchise in India. And finally, after much reluctance, they gave in, saying, okay, somebody in India wants to change it. Let him do it. Let's see what happens. And then I said, okay, no, I really, I'm a little superstitious, because I would do everything possible to make a show a success. Yeah. That's the only criteria behind any yardstick that we have. And I looked at wanting to make a spelling change, because somebody told me that this might help. I said, okay, let me even try this. Some Vastu, numerology, put together.
It seems to have worked massively.
It seems to have worked. It also brings in that impact to it big. Yeah. Nobody's tried it, nobody's tested it, but we made that big change. it's working. Why fiddle around now? And it's only going
I'm guessing
stronger.
this is a person you've consulted several times since then because they got it right there.
Yeah, like couple of times. We also consulted the same person during the change from Fear Factor to Khatron Ke Khiladi.
Yeah.
So I've changed the title many a times because I don't want the show to feel just like an import coming. And not just the title, the entire show, persona, personality. If you see the Indian version of that we make Big Boss, and you see the UK version,
Very different.
It's so different culturally. It's so relevant for us. We've kind of fashioned this around painting an illusion of you have a peek into your neighbor's home, and I'm giving it to you at prime time, right? And that's what we've always loved to discuss: the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's really happening in the neighborhood. And that's the insight with which this entire show was built in 2005, 2006. Can I really, build a reality daily telenovela, daily soap, where we have real characters, real emotions, real skirmishes, real friendships, and can we really tell a telenovela style story? And that was the initial first few years, and of course the show has had its own trajectory, which seems to be only growing
across languages, across.
Well, yeah, I mean that was the big gear change we did in 2013, 14. Because by then we had already produced maybe 7-8 seasons in Hindi. I wanted to see if this went to multiple markets. South was like like a new is a new country by itself. Different languages, different people, different audiences, different celebrities, different personalities. The fandom out there is of another
level,
cult level. So I wanted to really experience that and bring Bigg Boss into that fold. And again, it was a big journey those days because everybody, this is not culturally right for this market. But I always feel that if you have to do something, it has to be before time. I don't feel on time ever works, and after time in any case doesn't work. I really feel it has to be before time.
Just on Bigg Boss, if I talk about these 20 years, if I asked you if there was one definitive moment from Bigg Boss that sticks in your head, that's the first thing that pops into your head that for you really captures either the essence of the show or the popularity of the show, is there one moment from these last 20 years and these insane number of seasons that really sticks that out?
Well, lots of moments. I mean, there's so much of stuff that was now in hindsight meme worthy.
Yeah.
Back in those days, there's Pooja Mishra, and her memes. But to me, the standout moment was seeing the reaction of a bunch of contestants when Pamela Anderson walks into the house. Yeah. Right? Like, that
was a moment.
Yeah, like, we've only seen her in posters or in Baywatch. Like, Pamela Anderson just walked into the house, and to me that summarizes the shock, the scale, and the surprise of what we want to offer. And that really to me, I haven't forgotten that visual ever. That to me was like the defining moment of Bigg Boss because it was really it. And not just that, there was another moment that to me was again summarizes this, and these are I go back in the early days because this is like really etched in my memory, is when Shilpa Shetty had just come out of the Big Brother house in the UK, and that there was a lot of controversy and discussions around how she was treated at the Big Brother house, and we made her the host pretty much 2 months down when she came out of the London house, and we made her the host in season 2, and immediately we put Jade Goody in the house. The noise levels and the way she conducted with Jade Goody, because for us a guest coming home is a big deal, right? Atithi Devo Bhava, and so she really conducted it in a very Indian manner, in spite of whatever's happened in the UK house, in the London house, but she conducted in the most culturally relevant Indian manner. And to me that was, I haven't forgotten a bunch of these moments, and a lot more. Like, I have another moment where the great Indian Khali had walked into the house, and he and Salman Khan together, the photo op is
that's a visual.
Is $1 million itself, So, and a lot of such to me, which summarizes Bigg Boss, which is shock, scale, surprise.
I was going to say, how do you top the Pamela Anderson moment? This season, like Tom Cruise has to walk in. Like how do you?
No, not really. To me, now the show really, it's great to have any big personality, celebrity walk into the house, but I really feel Now it's about finding a Tanya Mittal. I think it's the story of the underdog in the last many years. It's really about how the common man is galvanizing. The common man has the big stage. Like who would think of casting Tanya Mittal in the house? Would you think? Would I think? No, there's somebody in this backyard who's thinking, right? So it's really that element that's really driving the narrative, the editorial choices today, like really give the stage and that scale and that impact to the common man. Like the Bigg Boss Marathi winner is a rank common man from Baramati.
Yeah.
Like really, so like really every nook and corner, villagers, smaller town, people are really galvanizing. I want my kid on that stage. I want my kid to win. I want my guy to win. So to me, it's now gone beyond getting, those are tricks that we did in the early days, but we don't, honestly, we've gone past that stage where we need just a big impact.
I do want to ask you about the art of casting for reality shows, but first I just want to switch gears to one of the reality shows of the moment right now, which is Alliance, which is of course your Amazon Prime Video reality show hosted by Kunal Khemo. While we're having this conversation, it's about a week away from the big finale. What's the response been like to that show? Are you surprised? Is it what you expected?
Well, I'm very, very excited, and I would say that because I'm the producer of the show. But a part of that, I think, at the onset, we wanted to make something which was a new vocabulary, a very differentiated vocabulary in a reality show. People generally equate reality shows to being slightly negative, slightly off-centered, and maybe conflict or toxic.
Yeah.
People have gone down in that direction. We said, let's not do any of that. Is there a new vocabulary that we can build which is positive, romance, relationships that have ended but are still very positive? So can we really look at and really deep dive into those stories? And I think we've managed to get that absolutely right. So it's very, very refreshing to see that there is a huge audience out there who wants that.
Yeah.
And I think that's also coming from the fact that I think there's an element of too many shows doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So try something new.
Speaking of that, the shows come out at the same time as Lock Up Season 2, which is Netflix's big reality show bet. It feels like both of them coming out at the same time is almost by design. It feels like one of those big box office clashes where everyone's benefited, because I know so many people who've been watching both. And there's all these comparison pieces, and it just seems like it's led to reality show having a moment on streaming. So was that sort of part of the plan? Because it seems to have really worked out well for both shows.
No, it was never part of the plan. It's just circumstances and the way it happens. People have their own strategies. We have our own strategy. Prime has their own strategy. Others would have their own strategy. But honestly, to me, if you stand very firmly on what you're trying to make and very clear that, okay, we set out to create a very differentiated show, and to me that was the most difficult track we would take, right? So, thinking of something in a reality structure, format, but positive. Not getting a huge A-level celebrity, but getting a Kunal Khemo, who's very good and is big in his own right, but very differentiated, very fresh. So we tried to change the reality TV playbook, and I think the fact that we're sitting here and talking about it itself is proof of the fact that that change is already paying off.
I did want to get your thoughts on what a lot of people consider the difference between the two shows. There is this sort of idea that Lock Up is more massy, Alliance is more classy. Lock Up seems to be in service of drama, conflicts, just sort of engineering all of that stuff. Whereas with Alliance, it seems to be more about the format itself, the games, the strategies behind it. Do you think is that a fair comparison?
I think it's a fair comparison. Engineering to me beyond a point is doctoring, scripting it. I'm not a big advocate of that. There's a reason these shows are called unscripted or non-fiction. If you may as well make a fiction show. To me the other show is more fiction than reality. Because it's all getting doctored, engineered in a certain manner. You're getting reactions and it feels that, and you can feel it. But I think there's a significant amount of audiences there for organic content, and to me today reality is like watching sport, right? If it has to feel real, it has to feel that the best man won. It must be that there's a winner and there's a loser, and that you've not engineered it. Like, if there's a big name in the lineup and he lost, he lost. I mean, so be it. But I do see some of the other competitors of mine trying to engineer it in a certain manner, and you can see it from top to tail that this is not going to work. And just making it toxic is a very old trick in the book.
I do have to pass on a complaint a friend and colleague of mine had, who's a big fan of Alliance and a lot of our friends, and she said that obviously a big appeal of watching the show every evening is either you're looking for those big moments or you're looking for the end of the episode, and as soon as you go online on social media, it's all there. So I don't know what you can do to control that, but she said I wish all the spoilers weren't out.
Yeah, I agree with that complaint.
It means people are excited, but I don't know how
people are excited, but today with social media, it's an engine by itself. It's a world by itself. It's very difficult to trying to keep it under wraps. We will do our best in the next season, but I know
I don't know how you do it, but
there are some ways to manage it, but those are learnings honestly at the drawing board itself. When we address the next season, we will definitely plug those cracks and loopholes in the system and the workflow. But honestly, some amount of spoilers are helping, but otherwise
it's also a good problem to have.
It's also a good problem. There's so much of curiosity that you've generated, but it becomes an issue towards the fag end, towards the finale days, and all of that. Towards the middle days, it's fine.
I did want to ask you about the audiences of these shows and sort of the shifting definitions of mainstream and niche, because it feels like because of the streaming era and because we're not in that monoculture anymore, now more than ever, you could have, if you combine the viewership of Lock Up and Alliance, for example, it's millions and millions of people. But it's never been easier to have millions of people watching a show, and a lot of people who've never even heard of that show existing in the first place. Right. So how do you navigate that arena where everyone is on a sort of different playing field, which is great for the audience, but then when you're making shows and you're trying to capture that, is there a way, or do you just sort of submit and realize that we can get a big audience, but we can't get everyone? How do you navigate that? Because it feels like things have really shifted.
So, see, we come from a world where we've delivered Bigg Boss in multiple languages, now 7, 8 different languages. We deliver 800 days of Bigg Boss in a calendar year. Yeah. It's unheard of globally. We come from the world where Bigg Boss cumulatively delivers almost about like 500 million viewers. So if somebody else is delivering 30, 40 million or claiming to have delivered, we are operating at a different level. To us, Alliance has delivered a new change in vocabulary, which is, you can't quantify that. I mean, while we can put a number to it, there's a significant amount of change that we've already delivered. So the size, the scale we are operating is very different. And to me, that is something that we are very, very bullish about. Of course, we want to deliver at a certain size and scale. The second point is we want to deliver something new and differentiated. So those are the two key parameters for us. What the rest of the world is doing, I can't control, but what I can control is what we are doing.
And do you feel like, because Bigg Boss has been so successful for so long, do you feel there's a pressure to innovate, or do you feel like if it's not broke, don't fix it and let it be what it is?
No, there is, we would love to only innovate. If there is any mantra I would give to anybody in my group or colleagues, or it's the only way forward is innovation, and there's no other way out. And you would see that across time in any of our shows, which is why Alliance is coming from that belief of really wanting to make that change, of wanting to innovate within the reality. I could have built another reality show very easily, but everything around what we built is what we unlearned, dismantled and rebuilt to create a new structure. In fact, the team that works on Bigg Boss is not the team that works on Alliance, is not the team that works on MasterChef, is not the team that works on Fear Factor. So these are very different systems, cultures of the way they want to create content. So my job is to only try and bring as many like-minded people to kind of try and get to a new world. In fact, Fear Factor came back after 2 years of break. Last year, you won't believe it, the network wanted the show. We cancelled the show as producers, saying I don't think it's a good time to do it.
Why is that?
Because I just felt that it needed a pause.
Okay.
And we went and said, this is not ready. It takes a lot of belief to pull back a franchise and say, no, it's business at the end of the day. The more you do, the more numbers you make and the more value you create.
Is that because you wanted to change the format, or you wanted people to miss you?
A bit of both.
Okay.
I think sometimes it's good to pause, pull back, and come back. And also, it's coming from a little bit of a learning. Our previous season of Fear Factor didn't land, and I said, I think it's time to recalibrate. So we took close to a 2-year break.
Yeah.
There was so much noise in social media and whatnot, and PR and print. We actually put it on pause. We said, let's go back to the drawing board, and I'm very happy with what has just launched on this weekend for our partners at Colors and Jio Hotstar. The numbers would be out very soon, but it's a different show altogether, and it's a very close franchise for us. You cannot create another Fear Factor. There is no number 2 globally, so we would want to make this for another 20 years.
I just want to get some advice from you. If I'm a producer looking to get into the reality space, I want to understand what works for an Indian audience. So, because so many of these shows, Alliance, if I'm not wrong, is based on a show from the Netherlands. Even India's got Latent is obviously sort of adapted. Even Traitors is obviously a very popular format. So, if my job is just to watch shows from around the world to see what would work in India, what advice would you have of the kinds of things that work here, what doesn't, and how you Indianize things?
Well, honest response, I have no clue, but I'm also learning as we go along, and genuinely that's my response. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of conviction, there's a lot of experience and learnings. I have faltered many times. I have missed the mark like a couple of times, and those learnings hold me, in bringing back some of these franchises or bringing some new franchises as well. But to me, the entire insight is coming from really unlearning. Like when I made the Great Indian Laughter Challenge, it was really from, can I really create stand-up comedy culture in the country? And this stand-up comedy culture was created in early 2000s, when there was no stand-up comedy culture back in those days. When I built a show called Pop Stars, I had no clue this was called reality television. The days of Viva and Asma, I'm sure you may have heard some of their songs back in those days. I had no clue this was called reality television. I got onboarded to reality television as we got along into it. I made a show called the Jammin', which was actually 2 musicians who never got along with each other would be locked inside a recording studio, and at the end of 24 to 48 hours, they would come back saying, here's my song. So I remember putting Palash and Menaz inside a recording room and literally locked them and said, you guys can't come in, I'm going to give you F and B and, come out with a hit track. I put Usha, Uttup and Parikrama.
Yeah.
I put Pentagram and Shankar Mahadevan. At that point in time, I didn't know what I was thinking, but it was a process of actually wanting to be part of trying to create some new vocabulary of content, and it seemed to be reality television if I look back at this journey. So yeah, I mean, these are some of these things that just helped me go along, and to which I would add to the point that you said, that is maybe the insight that's driving me to get to newer ground.
In terms of what doesn't work, I was speaking to a producer in the non-fiction space who said that sort of a very popular genre abroad which wouldn't necessarily work here is the hot dumb people on an island, that titillating, that whole thing. That kind of thing wouldn't necessarily work very well in India. Do you agree with that? Like, they're too hot to handle that entire sort of world of very popular shows.
Honestly, never say never. But honestly, I don't know. We'll get there when we'll get there. But I think the audiences are changing. It's 50% of India is 25 years and below. So which is also driving some sort of these consumption habits that we are seeing, which is why reality television, at some point in time, we'll get there. Actually, we go back to like 3 or 4 years back, we actually produced the Indian version of Temptation Island.
Which fits in that category.
Which fits in that category, right? So it was actually, in terms of data that we saw, numbers we saw, we were pleasantly surprised.
Okay, did well.
Yeah, it was amongst the top 2-3 unscripted shows back in those days. It hasn't come back, but maybe it'll come back.
You've said in an interview that one of your dreams, correct me if I'm wrong, is to create a format in India that then goes crazy in the West, the reverse. A, how's that going? And B, most of these reality shows we're talking about are all formats from that we have Indianized, that you have Indianized. There doesn't seem to be much space for the original show here.
Yeah.
So A, is there room for an original reality show? And B, how do you then try and achieve that crossover?
Well, there's definitely room for an original show from India to travel globally, and if there is a moment that Indian content is having, it's now. More so with the fact that there was a time and space for what I would call the Scandinavian content, right? There was a time and space for Israeli content, then there was a time and space for Turkish content. Lately, there seems to be a lot of Korean content, traveling. You know, India is having its moment right now. I'm pretty sure an idea would come out of here. I'm very sure an idea would come from our side. To me, back in those days when we created the Great Indian Laughter Challenge was a thought, but maybe it was slightly ahead of its time to travel globally. If we brought some of those ideas now, maybe they would work. So there are a bunch of things that we're really going to push through our pipelines very soon. There was a show called a Race to Space we announced last year. We will bring that back sometime this year.
Okay.
So it really is about finding that one Indian who can go to space.
Okay.
It's as ambitious as it is, sounding at this point in time.
Yeah.
But we want to get there. With this, where do we take unscripted reality, non-fiction content? What's the next level? So we are constantly thinking. That's really what is on our drawing board at any point in time. Like, how do we push this envelope to the next level? And one side of us, is obviously bringing a lot of these global franchises because it's easier to convince people, it's easier to navigate it. There's a blueprint, there's a franchise which is set, there's a Bible in place, so it becomes a lot easier to kind of convince people in the room.
Yep.
But if at all anybody loves to take the tougher route, it's us.
I also did want to ask you about the art of casting for reality shows, which I feel like is something that's not talked about enough. Because so much of these shows relies on guiding the right cast, and there are so many times where you just feel the casting is off. So in my experience, for example, Traitor Season 1, I thought the casting, which I know is not yours, was very weak because it seemed to be very tick box, where you have, I want 18 people, so you're just looking for people who are popular online or 18 people who are very entertaining in their own individual right. That doesn't necessarily mean when you bring them together, it'll all work. So what goes into the art of casting for reality shows where you're looking for colorful personalities, but you're also looking for great dynamics?
Well, to me, yeah. I mean, at times the problem is you want to tick all boxes because you want a very universal,
one influencer, one actor.
looking, sounding, feeling show. So then you tick all the boxes. That's one way to do it. But there are times when the classic casting doesn't work. We've changed the playbook multiple times. Back in the early days of Bigg Boss, people may not remember, we actually put 13 women and one guy inside the Bigg Boss house and locked them. So that was quite again maybe ahead of its time. The season really worked, but things like that need to be brought more in so that it doesn't feel very template-ish now. It does tend to feel a little bit that okay, all casting of reality shows seems to have some sort of a formula attached to it, but I'm pretty sure it'll change, which is where we brought in the Great Indian Khali, we brought in Jade Goody, we brought in Pamela Anderson. I remember putting a sumo wrestler inside the house. I remember a lot of different ways and means to kind of cast.
I want to switch gears to fiction for a second. You don't do too much fiction comparatively, but you also had a show like Raak this year, which was one of the strongest shows of the year. So how do you approach fiction? Is it just like if something really excites you, are you looking to do more in that space?
Of course, I left my role at Endemol because I was hoping to take a reality detox at one point in time. And I said I'd set up a new company called Banijay to really, do nothing with reality television. I tried to do that for 2 years, and that's where Night Manager was born. It really came from a feeling of really wanting to do something new, fresh, and never done before, never attempted before. And we really were trying to set up the spy, be all and end all spy show in the streaming space, and Night Manager came out of that. So more of that is going to come out. So one side of us obviously is creating a lot of these big blockbuster reality franchises. The other side is really creating Night Manager, Raak, Hostages, Call My Agent, Good Wife.
Which became trial, the Hindi version, and then The Good Wife, which is Tamil version.
Tamil version. So, for us, we're really taking a lot of inspiration from what we did in reality and also trying to see if we can do a Tamil version and a Telugu version. Arya in Hindi with Sushmata Sen will have a version in Telugu very soon. So, like criminal justice in Hindi will have a criminal justice down south.
You remade Monk in Hindi called Mistri with Ram Kapoor.
That's right.
You have House, the remake coming out with
That's
Nawaz.
right. So actually, if you look at it, reality makes a lot of noise for us, but which is why it feels like we do a lot of reality, but trust me, we do enough and more of scripted, and that's one side we want to really keep going forward. Very soon, you'd see a couple of films coming out of Endemol and Banijay.
Theatrical, streaming both?
Streaming and theatrical both. More streaming and yes, theatrical too, because we want to be a little cautious and conscious about what we would do, put out in the theatrical side and of course on the streaming side. So that's a different side that's really, I would say, mushrooming in the backyard here, slowly and steadily. So, and you would see some very differentiated stuff. And a lot of people don't know, we've actually at Endemol produced 5 films. So the remake of Warrior, the Tom Hardy film, Brothers.
Teen was you as well.
Teen was us. Traffic was us. Anamika, which was the remake of Kahani down south, which we did. Kahani with Vidya was done down south. So there's a lot of all that already built in. More of that is going to come from a drawing board.
I have to say, remakes on streaming in terms of shows very often, and multiple production houses do them. They tend to be quite lazy. The word adaptation is not put that much effort into, but it just feels like that format transposed here. But the 2 exceptions, I think, are both yours, if I'm not wrong. I think Arya season 1 is one of the finest shows I've made, and also one of the greatest adaptations. And I think Night Manager was another one which it really felt that sort of the adaptation part really worked. It became a very big, starry, flashy thing that felt like it belonged here.
Absolutely. I mean, when you touch a huge IP like Night Manager, you got to be very, very cautious about this, wanting to, reimagine it for the Indian audiences, because people have seen it, loved it, consumed it multiple times, and you want to make a Hindi version of it.
Speaking of original creators, season 2 came out earlier this year of the British version. Is the Indian version going to follow suit?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise and conjecture around it. Why not? I mean, it was such a fantastic franchise globally. Even in season 2, it's such a big franchise for us. We want to mount it at that size, that scale, and that appeal and that impact, because we were obviously setting out to make the James Bond version in the streaming world, right? So it has to feel like that. Anything less, it has to go 2-3 notches higher than where we left off. So we're waiting for the right time. We're waiting for the right circumstances to kind of get this moving.
Another thing you announced, you've talked about, is wanting to make a Suits remake in Hindi. Is that still happening?
It's happening, but we're very cautious about it, because again, it's like the holy grail of legal drama. So we're cautiously developing it. So we're going to take it very easy, no hurry, because some of these things don't, for us, there's no pressure of time or value or business pressures. We just want to land it in the best possible manner. So that's again being, it's mushrooming somewhere in the backyard here, but it'll get there.
Just last question on the fiction side. One concern a lot of people have is the space for the prestige fiction show. So I think Arya fits into this. One of my favorite shows in the crime space which you guys made is Trial by Fire. It's a show that I think about a lot. The way that show does grief is something that really sticks with you, and it's not talked about enough. Raak fits into this. The prestige show, regardless of genre. It feels like the number of those shows is getting, Raak is an exception. You're going to get a handful of those every year. Does that concern you, that storytelling that is the best of what's come out of the streaming space? It seems like when we used to there was a big space for them. Now, you get one Kora, you get one Raak. Does that concern you at all?
Yeah, it does. I think we should do a lot more of that, because there's significant amount of space. It was very positive to see the love and the reception that Raak got. Even Trial by Fire got as well. These maybe grief-stricken. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of empathy, there's a lot of emotions around it. We're also trying to find the next big stories that we could tell. this tribal woman as a lead antagonist is also coming really from there. There's an element of drama, emotion, grief, also layered through this entire story. So we are constantly looking at wanting to program against what we're seeing across in the ecosystem. There is an element of risk, but honestly, I genuinely feel value can be driven only before time and
not just more of the same.
Yeah.
Deepak, thank you so much for your time, and I know you have 15 things going on at once. We look forward to your massive slate, and more importantly, look forward to the next 20 years of Bigg Boss. I'm sure it'll go on longer than any of us are alive.
No, absolutely. Like Bigg Boss is just the cornerstone, but outside of that, there's so much happening here. Yeah, it's the 20th year, so kudos to everybody who's like kind of galvanized and given us more than necessary to build it. It just takes me back to 2005, 2006, where it was just a few of us with a DVD called Big Brother in our hands and wanting to go to every nook and corner of a broadcasting platform to try and convince them to do it. I think we've convinced them, and
it worked.
it seems to have worked.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of all that. It's opened up a huge Pandora's box in terms of reality consumption in the country. I'm very happy we are the ones who are really pushing to get to the next level now.
And it is kind of crazy how much that has sustained, because I'm sure, as you know, in this space, I imagine people are always just disrupting with, there's always a new sort of thing that takes over, and the fact that there's something about this show that's really lasted in a very popular way.
Yeah, 20 years is a long time.
Yeah.
It seems, and there are times when when you're running a 100 meters race, you need to build it in a certain manner. But when you're running a marathon, the prep for a marathon is very different from the prep for a 100 meters race.
Yeah.
So to me, this is the marathon that we're running, and we're running 8 such marathons at one point in time.
Across languages.
Across languages, and very soon. Bigg Boss Bhojpuri, Bigg Boss Gujarati, Bigg Boss, Punjabi, and whatnot.
And Pamela Anderson can appear in any of those.
Any of those, why not? Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Suchin. Lovely speaking to you. Thank you very much.